Okay, let's call to order the meeting and let's do roll call. Let's start with Levi.
Here.
Okay. Commissioner Funk.
Here.
Commissioner Lowry has asked to be excused from the meeting. So Commissioner Wallace, can you hear us? There you are. Commissioner Wallace, can you hear us? We can see you. Okay, we can see her.
We seem to be having trouble hearing you. Jeannie's dialing in.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute.
We can hear you.
Sarah, let's see if we can hear you. Commissioner
Can you hear
Funk.
me?
Yes, I can hear you.
To Zoom, enter your meeting ID followed by pound. Your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound to continue.
Hello, this is Jeannie. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you. I can't hear you guys over my computer. It's not going either way. So anyhow, I'm here. I'll listen closely.
Okay, so we called to order and we did a roll call, so you need to say you're here.
Okay, this is Jeannie Wallace. I'm here.
Okay.
Finally.
Let's go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. And let's go ahead and let Commissioner Levi Curtins lead us in Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. Everybody ready?
Yes?
I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance to
the flag
of the United States of America.
of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good job. We want
Commissioner
to go ahead
McLeod,
and do approval of the minutes.
Commissioner
and,
McLeod, before you go
yeah.
forward, I need a motion to excuse Janet.
Oh, excuse me. We need to have a motion to excuse Janet for missing the meeting. She did get a hold of the clerk and say that she didn't think she was going to be here. So can we get a motion from one of the commissioners?
I
I'll
make
make
a
a
motion.
motion to excuse.
I second the motion.
Okay, then she's been excused from the meeting. Thank you.
Michelle, we need a roll call on that.
Can we get a roll call on that? Sorry. Let's start with Commissioner Kearns.
Here,
Commissioner Wallace,
Yes.
Commissioner Funk.
Yes.
Okay,
And
all,
yourself.
and myself, Michelle McLeod. So she's been excused from the meeting. Okay, so we need to approve the minutes. And so that means to go over anything that's out of order or misspelled or that you don't agree with that was said. And so I'm going to start by saying that the first page of the top is out of order. So Levi either needs to be below Jeannie Wallace. And on the right-hand side of the top, the 4 needs to be before the position 5. Also,
Is Levi Curran's position number 3? Because it's in order of position and I thought he took position number 1.
well, I thought that Levi was a brand new commissioner and that I was sworn in as chair commissioner. So perhaps I'm out of order because this is our first real meeting.
Michelle, it goes by the year that, it goes by the year, not by,
Okay, well,
So
then strike
I'll-
that and go over to the right-hand side where the 4 and the 5 appears to be out of order. Is that not correct? Is there anyone here?
We're here.
I can hear you, Michelle.
Okay, well, it seems that the position 4 would be above position 5.
that part is correct.
Okay,
I mean, it needs correct.
exactly. Okay, and further on the first page, towards the bottom, when it says number motion 1, Commissioner McLeod has 1C. So one of those needs taken out. Is there anything that was said by any of the commissioners that was incorrect that you would like to change at this moment?
Michelle, this is Sarah. I had one suggested correction, which is for the regular meeting. I believe that we had our attorney present at that meeting, Jeff Briggs, and he's not listed as an attendee. You can see further down where he's commenting in the minutes, but he's not noted as an attendee.
I'll make that correction.
Thank you. Are there any other things that need to be adjusted that was said? Okay, then, with nothing being said, I suggest the approval of the minutes of February 2nd, 2022.
Sarah Funk makes a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
We need okay, it's seconded. Okay, thank you.
We need a roll call.
We need a roll call. Let's go ahead and start with Commissioner Current.
You just need to respond by saying yay or nay.
I'm sorry, my thing was muted. Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Wallace,
Yes.
Commissioner Funk,
Yay.
and okay, well, the agenda has been approved. And so we are going to go and adjourn this part of the meeting and start with the workshop meeting. Okay, the first one is the presentation, introduction to the proposed Title 17 changes.
Thank you, Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Millyanne.
Yes, again, I'm Millyanne Van Devender. I work for AHBL and for Benton City as a contract planner. My coworker Nicole Stickney is also with us tonight, and she'll jump in. So tonight we're going to talk about Title 17 proposed changes and for the comprehensive plan amendment for 2021, and I'll explain why it's 2021 when we get to that point. We'll start with Title 17, and I have a PowerPoint slide presentation for you, but I just wanted to start by saying this is a workshop. This is not a public hearing, so we don't have the same the same rules that apply when we have a public hearing. So for either of these items, you're welcome to talk to people in the community. We did not advertise this as a public meeting because the Planning Commission needs time to be introduced to the topic and to be able to talk about it. But that being said, if somebody wanted to say something, then it wouldn't be against the rules for them to say something, somebody from the public. So with that, we'll start with Title 17. Give me just a second to get the PowerPoint going. Okay. Can everybody see the first slide there and just one big slide?
No. We cannot see it, Millyanne.
No.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, this is Jeannie, and my video hasn't worked since I got into the meeting. Oh, now it's working.
Okay, I can now see the slide.
Oh,
Yeah, I
good,
can see
good.
also.
Okay. How about that? So it's Title 17 subdivisions, which is currently a chapter in the Benton City Municipal Code. And this is a proposed code amendment. So when we first started working with Benton City, we noticed we were tasked with keeping our eyes open for any kind of improvements that we can make to your codes. And we noticed that there were some challenging bits and pieces throughout the Title 17 subdivision code. And so we started making notes, and then we went through and did a big sweep to try to improvement. So you might wonder what the Benton City Title 17 is, and the purpose of the Title 17 subdivisions code is to regulate the division of land in Benton City to ensure the protection of public health, safety, and general welfare. It is further intended to comply with state guidelines regarding boundaries and plats, and that's codified in the RCWs. Title 17 was originally adopted via ordinance in 1981. And there have been minor amendments since then. So in 1994, throughout the 90s, and then most recently in 2018. And those amendments, as far as we can tell, have just sort of taken bits and pieces here and there and changed them out. But there hasn't been a full work through of the whole thing. And that's one of the reasons that we're bringing this update to you now. Another reason is that it's necessary in order to improve subdivision permitting processes and procedures, to ensure compliance with state laws, and to help diminish the city's risk from lawsuits. So the big thing about improving subdivision permitting processes and procedures is that you want to have good, clear process in your code so that when a property owner wants to apply to subdivide their property or to move a property line, then they need to know clearly what's required of them and what the process is going to be, and what they're going to have to do to make that happen. So that's one of the things that we focused on, was trying to clarify and clean up and make it a little more efficient for users. It's also important to have clear codes for people like me to go in and to be able to help the public know what is required, and to be able to help you know what needs to be reviewed, and for us to be able to review it. So we identified and added items that were not previously included. There wasn't really anything about boundary line adjustments, so we added a chapter on that. And there was confusing and the very little information that there is in the code about sidewalks is a little bit confusing. So we've tried to improve that. We revised several chapters and sections to update application requirements. We've streamlined the review process. We've clarified appeal procedures, and we've consolidated information where appropriate. So as far as updating application requirements, we compared what your current application forms require. And then we've also gone in and where the code said that, for example, there are places in the code that it says the applicant needs to provide 5 hard copies of their application, of their short plat or their BLA or whatever. And the city, from what I understand, what I hear from staff is that the city doesn't have any place to store those papers. And it's from a time when everybody was in one office and we passed around papers to different reviewers. So the engineer got a paper and the planners got a paper, and we're not doing it that way now. It's digital. So we've updated the code to require fewer paper copies and to require a PDF or some kind of digital copy as well. And that'll be better for storage for the city. We've edited the whole title to ensure compliance with state law. So with 5817 RCW and other applicable laws, and 5817 is a subdivision section of the RCWs. And we removed or adjusted redundant information and contradictory sections. So tried to clean up anything that was confusing. And then in general, we fixed any typos or grammatical mistakes. So some highlights of what we're proposing. So in the definitions in chapter 1708, we've added definitions for binding site plan, for boundary line adjustment, surety, and tax parcel consolidation. These are all things that have come up during our time working for the city. And there was a lack of clarity on what these items actually are. And that's the first place you go when you start to review something is, okay, what's the definition of this? What am I looking at? And then with boundary line adjustments, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, we added this new chapter. So it actually adds and codifies application requirements, approval criteria, and a review process for boundary line adjustments, which are currently permitted in the existing code, but without provisions. So there's this tiny little bit of information in the current code about boundary line adjustments, but there's nothing about what's required to go through with one. There's nothing about what's required to approve one. So we've added a chapter on that. And just so you know, we've looked at the RCWs for guidance on what kind of language we brought in for you. And we've used our vast knowledge and experience too. And in this case, we looked at your boundary line adjustment application form to find out what you've been requiring in the past. And that's what we've suggested be added into this chapter for the requirements. Some more highlights with short plats, which is when you have a smaller subdivision. We clarified the list of projects which are exempt from short plats. We've improved the list of requirements for short plat applications. Again, took out, the need for extra papers. We provided more detailed information regarding the administrative review process and made general edits throughout the chapter. And then with binding site plans, we've tried to clarify this. So the code as it is now has a section on site plans so to put it this way, the code uses the term site plan and binding site plan, and there's one other term, and sort of banties about and uses those terms interchangeably, and they are really different things. So a site plan review is something that your code requires when someone comes in to do an industrial or a commercial application. That requires site plan review of what their site's going to look like. A binding site plan is a division of land for industrial and commercial. So we've tried to make that very, very clear. And then in the subdivision chapter, we removed and added items throughout the chapter to improve the application requirements again, to explain the process better so it's clear what's required and what the process takes, and to provide requirements for impact fee deferrals, which we can talk about more later, and to more closely align with the state laws, the RCWs. So I mentioned sidewalks earlier. We added this new subsection to describe where and how sidewalks are required to be constructed. We added some requirements for dust control. So there were some requirements before, but we've expanded it a bit to describe the purpose for dust control requirements and the methods of dust control that are required in order to prevent problems caused by blowing dust. It's the Tri-Cities, it's dusty. And then there's a section in the current code, the current subdivision code, that's called variances. And a variance is more something that is belongs more in a zoning chapter. So we've just renamed this deviations so that there will be a clear differentiation between someone that's trying to get a change in requirements for subdivisions versus a change in requirements for zoning. So like I said, I was going to talk about the impact fees. So we amended, all we did was amend, we just changed the title of this section. It used to be called, or it's currently called land dedication. And we changed that to be impact fees because there's more to it than land dedications. So we added a purpose section to this chapter, which gives when land dedication or impact fees are required, having that purpose section gives more teeth to it. And we moved the impact fee deferral program sections from other chapters, so they were scattered throughout. That information was scattered. So we brought it in to consolidate it into one location. And the chapter now includes information on more than just parkland dedications, which is what it was before. We inserted sections to act as placeholders, just in case the city wants to add further impact mitigation requirements in the future, but we did not add any impact fees. We took what was there and cleaned it up. So with that, that was a very high level run through it. I can share the actual strike through and underline of the Title 17. Like Rebecca was saying earlier, you should have received a hard copy of it in January, because we were going to talk about this at the last meeting and ran out of time. So as you went through it, you can see that if you were looking at it on a screen, you can see that there are different colors, and that's because I worked on it and my coworker Nicole worked on it, and we sent it to Alan Rainey at Spink Engineering, who is the city engineer, to get his input on a lot of it. And we sent it to the attorney's office. So if you're looking at it digitally, that's why there are so many different colors. Things that are underlined are added, and things that are struck through are proposed to be removed. So with that, are there any questions? Is there anything you feel is missing?
I have one thing. where you're talking about the parks and you pay the fee to not have the park. Well, with that new development that we were talking about last time, we wanted to talk about the walking paths. Do you think that we should add something to that that refers to walking paths?
So that are you suggesting that you'd like to potentially require a subdivision to provide walking paths?
No, in lieu of park. Because if you make a development, you have to have a park area, and in lieu of that, you pay a fee to the city to not have that. But since we're trying to have a developer that isn't paying the fee and doesn't have a park because it's an awkward piece of land, we're giving him a piece of land back, but we want the walking path to go through. So if we're in that situation again, I was thinking that perhaps there might be some wording about walking paths. That's what I'm suggesting,
That's
because I
something
read
that,
the whole thing.
yeah, and that's something that we could consider. I think a better tactic would be to make sure there's information in your comprehensive plan. And there is actually information in your comprehensive plan that supports walkways and trails and paths. And we brought that into the staff report for that last project.
Okay.
And I think,
Would you please consider that? Because I really want him to put that path through, and I'm sure the community does, because we love those paths. And I don't want him to get out of that.
right.
If there's something we didn't add in time to stabilize our position.
Michelle, I'm making a note of your comments, and Millian, I'll be
Thank
taking
you.
notes, so you don't have to worry about that as you're responding. I would just add to your point, Michelle, I think that actually additional work will need to be done in due time with parks and impact fees. One thing we need to make sure of is that the city has an adopted capital facilities plan that shows a funding plan for future parks. It all needs to be put together, especially when we're talking about impact fees. So there's definitely more work to be done in this area. I think you bringing up walking paths is very good. I don't think we'll be one and done with the subdivision code. I think this particular part will need a little more attention down the road. But for right now, in terms of just kind of reconfiguring a few things, we'll look and see if we can add the walking paths and make sure we can package it all up.
Thank
Thanks.
you. I completely agree with you on that, because there's a gray area there, and I would appreciate it, I'm sure, with everyone else to get it more written in stone for the plan. Thank you.
Yeah. It looks like Sarah's got her hand up.
I do, yeah. So just to add on to Michelle's point, whether it's in Title 17 or at someplace else, I know the city of Richland has definitely adopted a tactic where over time, as their cities grown, they don't want developers necessarily to be building parks in every single area, because that also creates a maintenance burden for the city. What they do want to make sure is they get all the money that they can possibly get legally from the developers, so it can be used for things like walking trail, like other maintenance, like that capital improvement fund. And so further to the point that Michelle mentioned and Nicole's good points, how do we take this discussion and move it to the city for attention by city council or someone else, so it doesn't get lost?
I can't
It is
find my
action.
hand, but we already, when we, as the planning commissioners, we're the legislature, and we look at the big picture and we make recommendations. So the recommendation will go to the city council. And what happens to the money is that we don't want parks all through, and we are under parked at this point. We don't have as many parks as we have people in neighborhoods. So what happens to that money is it goes to the general park fund, and then the city council determines where the money's best suited to go to. So it's kind of a gray area. And I really think that that's what Millian meant by securing what actually happens to the money and where it goes and how it's distributed and what it's for, Go ahead, Levi.
Yeah, I couldn't find my hand to raise in Zoom, so I've got a case study example to talk about in relationship to these park fees and dedication, the proposed dedication percentage of the development. So I live over on 7th Street and I have about 2.5 acres, and I have a parcel that's butts up to 7th Street, and then I have the rest of my parcel that's kind of set off back from 7th Street. And I've wanted to do a short plat for quite a while to make another building parcel against 7th Street. And something I'm observing, so when I look through the short plat section, which is 17.2 or 17.12, it refers to the land dedication or impact fee section so it's applicable to short plats is all I'm saying. Basically, if I was to peel off one buildable lot out of my 2.5 acres, I would be, according to this proposed amendment, I would be obligated to either dedicate, go ahead.
You don't have a big enough plot to be obligated to dedicate.
Okay, how large?
Even though it abuts to the road,
Yeah.
I don't believe that you would have a big enough lot to have to do that unless you're making apartment buildings.
What is the minimum size which drives you into the dedication percentage?
Well, they're talking about splitting lots into 9. You know, if you when you do read your packet, which is in your old packet, most of it's there,
Right.
you'll understand.
Well, I'm reading it right now. So
I see.
it's making an amendment that a short plat can now be classified as up to 9 lots. It used to be up to 4 lots to still be in the short plat category. But if I'm looking through it on the short plat, all I'm wanting to say is a case study. So in example, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to understand how this would potentially affect me or other people in my situation. So if in theory I were to peel off 1.5 acre lot, and unless I'm missing some of the point here, it appears to me that I would have to dedicate either 10% of the short plat area or a prorated fee of the fair market value. So is that based on the size of the lot that I peel off that is prorated?
Millyanne, could you?
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, it's based on the whole thing. So when we look at a
thing.
short plat, yes, we look at the whole picture. So if you have,
Okay.
I don't remember how much you have total, 2.5
acres. Yeah.
2.5 acres. So we would look at the 2.5 acres and then the percentage would be from that, because as you short plat,
Okay.
we're not just looking at that one carved off piece. It's all of it.
Sure. Okay, so if that is the way it goes, so basically I would be obligated to dedicate a 1/4 acre to the park, to this proposed deal for parks, or a prorated fair market value of a 1/4 acre. So in my case, a 1/4 acre, it doesn't work because it's just the layout of it. I don't think it suits a park well. So the fair market value for a 1/4 acre lot would be $60,000. So so depending on who talked to me or who I got in as my application started going through, it appears to me that I could potentially be assessed a fee of, because a 1/4 acre building lot's 50 to 60 grand in Benton City right now. So does that mean to move forward with my short plat, all of a sudden I have to pay 60 grand because I can, in no uncertain terms, that would be cost prohibitive and defeat the point of me trying to peel a lot off. So am I understanding that correctly, or could someone maybe enlighten me a little bit on that?
Can chime in here. That is really what's already in the codes. We're not recommending any changes beyond what you've just described.
Okay.
If we look at section 1736.010, That is an
Yeah.
existing section. We've
Okay.
added in a phrase that says any fee or dedication under the section shall be roughly proportionate to the impacts of development. And that is key. The attorneys have
Okay.
asked us to include that because of the case law and requirements under the RCW. So the
Okay.
city can't collect any fees that aren't based on a nexus or proportionality according to impacts from a development. So I can't give you a clear answer on exactly what scenario you would be required to pay what amount.
Yeah.
But right now it does read that the existing code does read that you would have to pay a fee in lieu of dedication, and that it would be prorated fair market value. So that's not anything new. So we are looking to, like I said, make incremental improvements here. We're adding that phrase in, and but the idea is that growth should pay for itself. That's kind of the
Okay.
principle behind all of this. So I'm kind of giving you a mixed answer right now, but that's the
Sure.
best I can provide.
I
So I guess,
understand that what you're saying, and there's easements probably on his property, and depending if he's selling it or if he's developing it, those are all variables that you'd need to know to give a good answer for that.
And to be honest, I don't know if the city has been, with how they've been processing short plats with respect to parkland. I don't think that we've really come across that to know what the precedent set has been. But we
Okay.
can certainly look into that and have that information before this goes to public hearing.
That'd
so
be good, because
I-
all the years I've been doing this, it seems like it was only apartments and neighborhoods that even had to address this situation. And if you're going north on the main road and you turn left on OIE is a good example. On the right, there is a development there of apartments. And they had to, they wanted that little apartment or the little play area for those kids because they didn't have sidewalks, curbs and gutters for safe travel to the park. So it was better for that particular apartment development to do the little park for the development. Other places up on Neptune wanted to pay the fee rather than having a park. So each development is different, and it depends on what you plan on doing with the land, because no one's going to make someone that sells a lot or builds a home to sell expect them to have a park. So it just depends on what you're doing with the properties.
There's a
Yeah.
few things to balance here. I'm sorry, Levi, just real quick. I was just
Okay.
gonna say it's important to be fair and balanced, but also have some flexibility in place for different situations depending on where in the city we're talking about. I'm sorry, go ahead, Levi.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to tag on to that. So I guess in my situation, I know recently there's been multiple properties that maybe they peeled off a lot and they're in an established neighborhood. So maybe in the interest of maintaining, like you said, flexibility, it would be important to add some language in there where, you're not having to ask for like, I guess, a variance or have the mayor grant an exception to the rule. So like in my case, like to me, it sounds ridiculous if I read the letter of how that's written, I think I understand it that I could be obligated to pay essentially a fair market value for a quarter acre of land, which it wouldn't be an interest to me to subdivide at that point. I might as well just go buy a lot somewhere else. So maybe just if there was a way to maintain, like you said, the flexibility to where, in my case, I would be adding like a single house to an established neighborhood that already has sidewalks and all that. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Well, they do talk about that when you read your whole packet. They talk about adding a home to land that has already developed a home. So there is a section in there, and I can't tell you the exact part because I read the whole packet. And so when you read through that, you might be able to see what you resemble. And you always have to take in consideration the easements that makes properties smaller than what we think that is there too. And if you're on 7th Street, I lived on 7th Street. I lived north of 7th above Lower River Road. So down on 7th Street, there's the little mobile home park, there's housing, there's mobile homes. And so you have to figure out what is allowed on your property area. And I just don't see you needing a park if you are just building an additional home. If you're gonna do a trailer park, like the one coming into town by that new event center, that's a whole nother situation of them putting campers on property. So it depends on what you want to do with that property, where you're going to fit in the city code.
Yeah, understood.
This is Jeannie, and I don't know, you were referring to this code being in place since originally in 81. Pardon me?
We can hear
Anyhow,
you.
okay, I thought somebody was asking or couldn't hear me. I apologize. Anyhow, it says the code was generated originally in 81, just some past precedent. I have like 18 acres, well, I guess it's split up. I'm sitting on 15 acres, but back in the 90s, it was my dad's then. Anyhow, we split off a half acre and I was intending to put a house on it, but I didn't. I just wanted to let you know, though, at that time, there was no discussion about park fees or exchange of land or anything. And when I empathize with Levi, because in order to do that now, it would cost me a whole lot of money since I'm sitting on 15 acres, and I wouldn't have been able to do that either.
Janice, the difference between Levi's property and your property is that he's in the city and you're still in the county, so you'd have to have yours rezoned.
No, I am in the city, and I've
Are
been
you
in the city.
now?
I'm right. Oh, I have been forever. I don't want to be, but I am. That's why I'm on the planning commission. Yeah, I live across the street from the library.
Okay, you
So,
took me
yes,
back
it
6
is.
years. I remember
Yeah.
that. My apologies.
Yeah, no problem. I was just sharing the story so you know what the past precedence was, and I just have to agree that if that was the circumstances, I would not have short platted at that point.
Right, and it's been a part of the law since we were graduating from high school. So,
Yeah,
you
I know.
have to figure out if you're
I
having a
know.
park or if you're donating. So,
Well, I didn't have to do either, and there was never a discussion. I wasn't even aware at that time, and this was the 90s,
That's
that was
probably
a
'cause you
requirement.
it's probably because you didn't build the house, Sunshine, or Miss Wallace.
No, yeah, when I went through the process of short platting, that's when I think you have to go through and identify the dedication of the property, depending on what you're going to do with it,
Well, I
because it
think-
was zoned residential.
I think a lot has slipped through the cracks. Did you do that when Smiley was alive or afterwards?
Yeah. Yeah, it went through under my dad's name, and I guess he's an old timer and did a lot for the town. Maybe that had something to do with it, but anyhow, just brought that up. If this is what we're doing now, it's not quite consistent with what's been happening in the past.
Well, I
Just
think
a
that's
note
why
of
it's
information.
important that we're revising the code, and even though that was already there, that's not revised. That's been going on for
Right.
a long time.
Just so you know, that part of the code was actually put in 1995.
Oh,
About
okay,
the park fees. That was put into the code in 1995.
okay.
So anything done prior to 1995 probably didn't have that discussion. but now that, since 1995, those park fees and in lieu of park fees and stuff have been put into the code.
Okay, thank you. My background only goes back 8 years. So
Yeah.
thank you for that, Nicole.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. And it was the early 90s when the short plat was done.
So if there is more discussion on that, that's fine. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, this is Sarah Funk. I had a clarifying question. Just overall, when we're talking about all these things, just to make sure that I'm on the same page, and thanks for your patience because I'm new. I understand that any code changes that we're working to propose are only applicable for anything that is new, and only applicable after any proposed changes get formally adopted.
That is correct. That is correct. Once what happens is, I didn't mean to cut you off, Millyanne, but what happens is you guys make the recommendation to council. Council passes the ordinance to do all these changes, and they're effective 5 days after it's published.
Excellent.
There's actually another piece of time that's involved when you make a change like this, and that's that it. And Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a 60-day notice with the Department of Commerce of the state. They do a cursory review of it also. And then there's lots of public comment period involved. We're in the very, very, very beginning of this right now. We haven't even done the SEPA review on it yet, because that has to happen. And then there's the public comment period, and the Planning Commission will hold a public hearing, and then you'll make a recommendation. So yes, you are correct that this is not going to affect anything that's happening right now. It would only affect any projects that come in the door after it's adopted, and then the 5 days after that.
So are we just making recommendations tonight?
Tonight, you don't have to make any decisions except
Okay.
to tell me if you, at the end of the discussion, just to decide whether you want to have another workshop on this or if you want to schedule a public hearing for it. But we're
Okay.
not asking you to make any recommendations to council at this point, because you'll need to hold a public hearing, and for that we have to let the public know and put it in the newspaper and do all of the ways to let the public know.
Okay, thank you, Millyanne. I think that answers Sarah Funk's question.
I actually have an additional follow-on question. If it's
Okay.
Yeah, so with so much development, or comment first and then a question, that's occurred in the last 18 months, between new development, annexation, these plats, things are already approved that we know this wouldn't be applicable to. I just wanted to also level set in the current perspective, while I know this is incredibly important. Are there any more, like Blacktop Estates is approved? You know, we talked about the short plat in our last meeting for Vintners Village. Are there other large areas in the city limits that can come up that are currently like in the pipeline? I know there's the area over on the other side of I-82, and it looked like there was some orange thing in a zoning, but are there very many large subdivision areas currently available in Benton City?
Yeah, there are places where people could make application, sure.
Okay.
And then they would be vested to the regulations at the time that their application was complete. That is the vesting doctrine in Washington State.
Cool. So then my other question is, I know you're working on, there's a lot of cleanup that just needs to be done. And I think AHBL has done a fabulous job in just trying to get us moved forward. At the same time, as you mentioned in 1736, you've left room and not considered any new impact fees. I would say time is of the essence to get that done, because there's several that Benton City's never considered, which is lost revenue for the city. Is there an opportunity to contemplate that before we come back in to our next session, or talk about it more tonight?
There is an opportunity, however, I'm going to recommend against it. And the reason is because there's quite a lot of work to be done when you're changing impact fees. Meaning that we would need to look at the parks plan, we would need to look at a number of items and create kind of a record for making changes to make sure it's legally defensible. So that would probably delay any action on this the set of code changes for several months.
Is that
Nicole,
true for
add-
transportation also? Or are we better versed in transportation because of the growth that we've seen and the fact that there's so many other pieces of documentation like the comprehensive plan that aren't yet updated?
In order to adopt transportation impact fees in Washington state, there are a number of regulatory requirements. Let me give you just a quick idea. Just bear with me a second here. Transportation impact fees must be used for public streets and roads that are addressed by a capital facilities plan element in a comprehensive plan adopted under the Growth Management Act. They can't be used for funding transportation studies or any operation and maintenance cost. They also couldn't be used to retrofit anything that's already been done. It would have to be all new development that is linked, that nexus linked to the growth itself. We would need to make sure that everything was done in accordance with RCW 8202-050 through 110. It's not a small undertaking. And in order to go through determining impact fee rates, you have to go through a specific process and take many things into consideration and document them. Typically study would have to be done. We'd have to know all of our level of service standards throughout the city, like where we are with traffic, all of that kind of thing. So again, of course, something like that, if that's desired, could be included with this, but I would suggest that it might be good to do some incremental changes and try to work things through as we can, not try to bite off more than maybe we can chew, just to be honest, because there would be a lot involved. And right now, I'll tell you, in terms of our support to the city, we're really pressed right now with just the development activity that's happening. While we provided our suggested changes to Title 17 some months ago, it's taken a while to even get to this point. So things don't always move as quickly as we'd like. So I just based on that past experience over the last couple of months, I would say if we try to add in more things, it could slow it down. Of course, it could be a benefit. It's a balancing act.
That's
Thank you,
absolutely
Nicole.
fair. Thanks,
Thank you, Nicole. And in addition to that, we're supposed to, as commissioners, address what they send to us. I know that it's nice to look forward, be such a forward thinker, but that'll go through the city office and the city council before we ever get that far on paperwork for that, I'm sure, because we talked about that. We were trying to get the sidewalks through town when I was on the council. So we wanted to go clear past Neptune all the way to the edge of town. And it took a great deal before we were ever to get to the point where we're at now. This is 8 years later. So I'm sure someday we'll see that come before us, but right now we need to focus on what has been sent to us. I did have a question though on page 37. Is it okay for me to have a question?
Yes, absolutely. Let me
Okay.
get on page 37.
Pardon me? Page
I'm just-
37.
Okay.
Down on the bottom, it's numbered 1 through 9. I wondered why it says chairperson, city hall first, and then mayor and their designatee. When I read it, I was thinking it should be 1 and the mayor and their designatee, and then chairperson and city council should be 2. What do you think about that thought?
Can you, I don't think I'm on the same page. Can you give me is it 17 dot?
Okay, it's
Sorry.
my apologies. Let me go to the heading on the other page.
And we
I
really,
marked a few things. Oh, that's upside down. Great.
Millyanne, I think it's 37 as indicated on the actual paper. In
It's
Oh,
Article
I see.
3, final plat is page 36, and then the next page is 37.
Okay, I'm there, Michelle. What's your, Commissioner McLeod?
When
sorry,
I
what's
was
your
reading
question?
it, it just seemed out of order. Like one should be mayor and their designee, and then two should be chairperson and city council, and then city engineer and the rest seem to be in order. I just wondered if that was correct or incorrect. It just seems like it should say mayor and designee as number one.
We
See
can
what I'm
certainly,
saying?
yeah, I do. I see what you're saying, and we can certainly change that.
Yes, thank you, because that doesn't, it just doesn't seem in the right order.
Yeah, we can change that. If it puts your
Yeah.
mind at ease, when plats come in, the title blocks, these spaces for approvals and signatures, they're not in any specific order.
Okay,
There's kind of an order that the developer takes the paper around to get it signed. Like they have to have, for instance, they need to have their utility people sign it before the mayor signs off on it.
oh,
So
I see.
general example, but yeah, that's something that we could fix. That's an easy.
Yeah, I think it needs change, because designatee, it could be you, or it could be anyone designated for the specific duty. Let's see, I had something else marked here too, but I don't know if we already discussed it. I think page 62 is the parkland suggestion to add in the paths, if at all possible. Because with that one development, there is no way to have an actual park. And giving him the plot of land back in lieu of the park payment, we need to make sure that we can get that path through in difficult areas. So, because the whole plan of those paths are to go all the way through the community, and it's really an easy out for that guy, really.
Yeah, that's certainly something that Nicole and I can look
Thank
at.
you.
Mhm.
I think that's all from me.
Does anybody else have anything they want clarified or any questions or comments? So, yeah.
Would the walking trail be classified under the Public Park and Recreation Improvement Fund? Because perhaps, if in reference to what Michelle was just talking about, if they did a fee in lieu of a dedication and it went to the Park and Recreation Improvement Fund, is the walking trail under that category or within that realm of that fund?
Potentially, yes. And
Yes.
my thinking is that, so you have a parks plan and you have a parks section in your comprehensive plan, and that would be the very lowest level of decision making for city council, is that they would look first at the comprehensive plan and the parks plan to see what are the priorities for the community, how should we spend this money. Yeah, so and there is a good section on trails, like I was saying, in the comp plan, that the community, like Commissioner McLeod was saying, the community really supports and enjoys the pathways, and it's clearly written in the comprehensive plan for that.
Yes, and that fellow's land is I went down and looked at it. It's just not somewhere where he can put a park, but he could put another duplex, and it's a good idea for him. And we need everyone to have that opportunity if we're letting him have it.
So if there are,
I had one other question about just the short plat and long plat sizes. So I don't, if it's appropriate, the change goes from the short plat from 4 to 9, and for long plat, it changes to, and I understand that relieves an administrative burden and it's allowed and everything else, but are those numbers set in stone? Does it have to go to from 4 to 9? Or could it go from 4 to 6? Does it matter? Or what are the driving things? Because we know SEPA goes away with the short plat.
Yes. To my knowledge, there's no, it's up to the city how many lots you want to make eligible for a short plat. It could be 6, it could be, anything less than 9 or less is what's in the what's allowed by state law and by SEPA. So yes,
I'm guessing that the reason that they went up to 9 is because of the lack of opportunity for the landowners to break up their land for the reason of developing, because we do not have a lot of land. And that's why we have a 20-year plan to extend the city. So I imagine there's a serious lack of housing. We're in crisis as far as homes for our kids. So they're looking at the big picture. That's what I'm thinking.
And what about the big picture impacts of more growth and fast growth and no SEPA considerations?
Well, some of those developments, it's going to take 5 years. And I've noticed as I drive around, I've okayed a lot of stuff that never happened. So in the long run, not everyone's development is even going to happen. That's what it seems to me.
There's that, and there's also thinking about the impacts. Are 8 homes going to have as much impact as 80? I think is where I come from when I think about it. And I also think about what catches there are in the code presently. So if there are, for environmental issues, it's thinking about things that SEPA could catch. And you've got critical areas ordinance in your code. So if there are steep slopes on the site, there's criteria for reviewing that and determining, whether the development's going to remain safe or if it can be engineered to be safe. There are critical areas near the river, wetlands. There's also the layer of the shoreline master plan, so anything near the river. So I guess what I'm saying is there are already different catches in place, different codes and ordinances and plans and things that are already in place that can maybe put your mind at ease for a lot that's for a short plat to have 8 lots or 6 lots or 5 lots.
And the engineer is looking at all this. He's not going to let anything happen that is going to be unsafe. It's all being watched very closely. At least that's been my experience.
The city engineer does a fabulous job. And even, but for the SEPA, that still doesn't help us at all with the traffic problems. So thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it.
Well, we're on a state highway too, and that complicates things greatly for widening or having any types of turn lanes. I made suggestions to the city before you guys were here, and then the city makes recommendations to the state, and then the state assesses the recommendations, and it takes a long time to get anything done because I'm still waiting for turn lanes that we've recommended. Go ahead, Millyanne. Maybe we should continue.
No, I was just going to ask if there are any further questions or clarification. So
anything else that you might want to know about before we get to a public hearing? This is kind of a chance just to even just say like, I never understood XYZ or can explain something to us. This is your chance.
Yeah, this is very informal compared to when the public is watching us.
Yeah, this is your opportunity.
Go ahead, Levi.
Yeah, could you guys explain for me the impact deferral program that's referencing up to 20 deferrals? Can you help me understand that a little more fully?
Yes, I can. That was actually a requirement by the state legislature to allow deferrals of impact fees. So every city at a certain time, I think it was about 4 years ago or so, were required to adopt changes to their code to allow for these impact fee deferrals. It's actually probably whatever year you see in the ordinance at the end is when we had to do that. So I don't know about how successful the program has been, but from my recollection, the reason why the state legislature wanted to require that communities have given opportunity for impact fee deferrals was because that way people would have to pay their impact fees at the time they occupy the structure rather than when the building permit comes.
Okay.
Some may say that that was a way for a builder to pass along the cost to the homeowner, but
So that's just part of the package of buying a home. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, what I'm saying is that the city was required to offer the opportunity for people to ask for deferrals just to postpone when those impact fees would be paid rather than time of permitting.
Right.
It
but
still
they
has to be
didn't-
paid.
It's just a short-term waiting period that will have to be paid or they'll be foreclosed on, I believe.
And
Well, I
that-
think you
that's-
just don't get
read
an
in that. That's why I
occupancy
wanted an
permit.
example of that.
Yeah, I think they just wouldn't give you an occupancy permit till it gets paid is actually how it would work out. But yeah, the idea was that they wanted to, and I think it was the home builders who were kind of really pushing for this, right? They wanted to give the money to the government as late as possible in the process, if
Okay.
you will.
This is in reference specifically to residential building permits. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
so
thanks for all
how,
the questions. Go ahead, Millian.
yeah, no, I was just gonna ask how everybody's feeling as far as being prepared for a public hearing. Do you want to take this to public hearing? This is March, so in as soon as April, potentially. We do need to take it through SEPA, so we would have to coordinate that and the public notice. And be able to get it back to you by April. So is there a feeling that you'd like to go ahead and move forward with the process, or do you want to have another meeting like this, another workshop like this to ask more questions? What's everybody
We
thinking?
take a vote on that, or, I mean, Janet's not even here. We don't know what she even thinks.
I don't know. That's up to you guys how you want to do it. If you want to take a vote, it wouldn't be any kind of official, you wouldn't be making any kind of declaration or anything. It would just be a decision. Yeah.
Well, I've never been chair commissioner, so I'm a little nervous about it myself, even though I read all the information. I almost always read every word. I know that it would probably be greatly recommended that everyone read it over again because the public will have some hard-hitting information, I'm sure. And you guys, this is your second meeting. You guys really got thrown to the wolves that first meeting because nobody knew what their position was in any of the positions. So I completely understand if you're nervous about moving ahead quickly.
Maybe as a point of clarification, so a public notice goes out at the time that people are ready to move forward. Who answers the majority of the questions? It seems like generally it's staff and the chairperson. Is that right? Or largely just staff?
Answers questions from the
Public.
So yes, if questions come in from the public, then like, are you talking about prior to a public hearing?
During
Once-
the public hearing.
During the public hearing, those questions can be answered by staff or by the planning commission.
Also, normally we have our lawyer and we have our engineer normally, and they answer a lot of the questions that we're not qualified to answer.
The other thing I'll mention, just as you mull this over, is that while we're limited to having one public hearing for quasi judicial actions, like the preliminary plat that we had last month, this is the legislative item. So if for some reason you feel like there's still more testimony that you want to hear, or you want to have another public hearing before you render a recommendation to city council, that will be an option that you'll have. So what I'm saying is you could have a public hearing in April, and then maybe something, really important comes up, you want to refer it back to staff, and then we bring it back in May. Like, we can do that sort of thing. It can be pretty free flowing because this is a legislative item. Also, you're not barred from talking to anyone about this. So if your neighbors want to talk to you about the subdivision code, anything like that, anytime we're talking about changing the municipal code, I want you to realize that the appearance of fairness doctrine does not apply. And so you have that opportunity. And you can also call us when you have questions, that sort of thing. So it's really, I'm just saying this to make you a little more comfortable, hopefully, with the process.
This is Jeannie Wallace, and I just wanted to say that I feel comfortable moving forward with it because the document has to go through public involvement, and it's possible that some of the public's comments may require that the document be revised based on those comments. So it's not like a final document that we're approving. To me, it's still a living document until it's finalized after it goes through public comment.
I
Is my
completely agree.
interpretation correct?
I completely agree with Commissioner Wallace. She's been on here for almost 8 years, and I've been on here almost 6 years, and I feel really confident in moving on, but I would like to know how the 3 new people feel, because what you feel is valid and important. And it'll be a while before this is pushed through. I mean, what I read was wonderful. I did make a few recommendations for them to change, but the comments from the people that do come to the meetings oftentimes sway our opinions. So I think we should push through, but I don't want to pressure anyone.
I don't feel pressure. I'm going to avail myself of the opportunity to read it again thoroughly. I think I did read this about a month and a half ago before the first meeting, but I'll read it again. And like Commissioner Wallace said, we're going to public comment next. So I feel like there's still the safety net of another opportunity for revision. So I'm comfortable proceeding.
Over the 8 years I've been involved, I've probably read this 5 times, just a guess. And so it just had minor revisions here and there. And what I read really brings us into the 20th century, actually, and makes it more understandable for the public. And it covers more ground to keep the city from being having fees stolen. And it's just a way better read than it was before. So I think it protects the city from being sued and taken advantage of at this point. We've really have some good revisions here.
I know I'm new.
add-ons.
This is Sarah. I'm supportive of moving forward also, just to keep the process going. I think the revisions are, really good. And, as Commissioner McLeod and Wallace have both stated, there's a long ways to go still to get it done. And time is never on our side when these things take so long. And we have some great professionals and city staff looking at all this. I do have one clarifying question, and I have my training pages printed in front of me. So since this is legislative, we go through public comment here and make a recommendation. Do people have to participate in public comment here? When it goes to council, is it closed or is it open?
It's open.
It's open.
Don't you have to, since we're on Zoom, you have to get a hold of them and you have to ask to speak? Like normally when you go into the building, there's a time where the people get to come up and say their name and their address and what their concerns are and what they're concerned about or what they want to be concerned about on the agenda meeting for next time. But what's the difference with Zoom?
Yeah, so I'll let Rebecca answer some of the meeting protocols, questions, since that's her area of expertise for Benton City. But in response to Sarah's question, it's possible that the city council could decide to have one or more of their own public hearings on this before they take action. They may not feel the need to do that. They might just rely on the record created by the Planning Commission. But I would imagine they would probably give the public an additional opportunity to speak on a proposed ordinance once it's before them. So there is always a chance that, someone will slide in at the end and have another comment, and maybe that will change the way they want to adopt things. But it is important to realize that the Planning Commission's role here is to try to garner as much public comment as we can, put the word out that we're making these changes, and accept that comment, and then provide a record and a recommendation to City Council. And then, of course, it's up to them where it goes from there.
I do have a question on the things that I
Should we let Rebecca
suggested.
answer about Zoom real quick?
Yes, please do.
Sorry, go ahead.
My apologies.
Okay, so the Zoom process is exactly the same as it is in person. The mayor will read the script, let them know what the public meeting is about. We'll then ask for the staff report, which will be Millie Ann or Nicole, whoever's present, and then ask for council comments, which then the council comments on any questions that they might have. And then if there's public comment, they will have to state their name and address for the record. And then they are able to comment whatever they want to comment regarding the issue of the public hearing. And then, sorry, I'm a little sick. And then if they have direct questions for the staff or for council, they ask and they'll answer. It's basically the same as it is in person via Zoom. There's no difference.
And the council members can talk as a council member, and then when it's the public, they can go down to the desk and talk as a public person. Just like we can talk as a public person at the council meeting, or we can address it as though we're a commissioner. But I think you'd get farther with being a public person. So that's all I had to add to that.
Okay, so it's sounding like we're ready for public hearing, and we can try to get that ready for you to bring it to you in April.
I do know, talking to Janet, she did have some questions. So if you guys want to go ahead with the public hearings, you can do them there.
Yeah, and you can also let her know that she can contact us if she wants to ask those questions.
Will do.
Okay, so with that, are we ready? Is everybody ready to move on to Comprehensive Plan Amendment 2021? Yes.
I think we are. There's at least three of us that said we were.
Okay, good.
Yes, we're ready.
I'm moving on. Thank you. I have another PowerPoint presentation for it. So it's Comprehensive Plan 2021. It's another legislative issue, so we can talk freely about it. And this is not a public hearing, it's just a workshop. And the reason that it's 2021, even though we're in 2022, is because that's when the applications came in. So as a city, you're allowed to amend your comprehensive plan once per year. So with that, I'm going to try again to share my screen. Okay, does everybody see the first slide? comprehensive plan annual amendment workshop? Yes, thumbs up?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we can skip this. It's just for the public to remember to mute their phone. So we're going to go through an overview of the comprehensive plan amendment process, the difference between a comprehensive plan update and a comprehensive plan amendment. I already reminded you this is a legislative issue. We're going to talk about the items on the docket, the next steps, and then there's time for discussion. So for those of you that have been on the Planning Commission for a while in the City Council, or if you've been paying attention, you might ask, you know, didn't we just go through this? So the comprehensive plan update process happened, the big update process happened in 2017. And there's a requirement from the state that those get updated every 20 years. But as a city, you can go in and make amendments every year, one per year, not one collective, not one item per year. And the comprehensive plan was amended in 2020, and that was adopted last September. Comprehensive plan amendments can be changes to the maps or the text of the comprehensive plan. And for this current round of amendments, the City Council set a deadline for applications for October of 2021. So there was public notice that went out and said, anybody that has a piece of property that they want to apply to have the land use designation changed on it, they can apply. That's the best example I can think of, is that if you wanted to have the land use changed, a citizen, a private citizen can also come to the city and say, you know, the text here needs to be changed. It needs to say this, or it needs to be corrected for that. So that process, we gather the applications and then provide the applications to City Council. And then they establish what's called the docket. It's the list, it's the to-do list, it's the, or not necessarily to-do list, but it's the list of items that they either accept or do not accept as part of the amendment process. And I'll go into those items soon. So this is a legislative issue, like I keep saying, and the requirements for this for you are to, and you're not making any decisions tonight. Again, this is just a workshop. This will go to a public hearing similar to what we just discussed with Title 17. So eventually you'll need to evaluate the cumulative effects. So you want to look at this and think about the whole city, and not just if there's a property owner that's requesting a change to their land use designation. You want to think about how that fits in with the whole city. How does the jigsaw puzzle go together? And then, like I said, the Planning Commission, you'll hold a public hearing for this, and you'll take public comment. We want a lot of public involvement. The comprehensive plan is the roadmap for the city going forward for the next 20 years. When we do a big comprehensive plan update, which is the one that happens those are further apart. And when those happen, we tell people, you know, this is come to us and tell us how you want to see your city. Think about your city in 20 years. What are the components of your city that you want involved? And then we get public involvement from that. Eventually, this comprehensive plan amendment will get City Council approval, because it'll go to them for a public meeting. So this is a little map to show you what areas are on the docket. So the pink line, the dashed black line, is your city limits, and the bright pink, well, actually it looks kind of purple on your screen, maybe. That's, see if you can see my cursor. That's your urban growth boundary, urban growth area. And then there are little spots here. There's a yellow one up here. That's docket item number 1. Down here is docket item number 2. And then there's some blue guys down here. Those are on the docket too, just to give you a visual so you know where we are. So now I'll dive right into the docket items. So proposed item number 1 is a map change with a rezone. And this is a piece of property that's owned by it's the Olson Brothers Ranch Incorporated. And they're requesting a land use change of commercial to residential, as well as a rezone from C1 commercial to R3 residential high density district. So it is commercial now, and they want to go to residential. And then the parcel number is listed there if you need it. And the location is just to the west of Horn Drive and west of 13th. So on the left here, you can see the existing land use is the red, that's commercial, and the parcel that we're talking about is outlined in blue. And they're requesting that this be changed to residential, the land use designation for the comp plan. In tandem with that is a rezone, so from commercial to R3 high residential. There's R2 residential, R2 medium to the east on the other side of Horn. And then it's got a lot of commercial all around it. So we're going to stay pretty high level with these tonight, just to give you a good introduction of the items. So proposed docket number 2 is a map change without a rezone. And this is for Philip Shelostowski, who was on the meeting earlier. He may still be here. And he is requesting a land use change of manufacturing light industrial to residential. So this parcel is outside the city limits, but it's within the city's urban growth area. And this is a really interesting situation. The property owners may not find it so. But the city decides the land use designation, so the future use for this property, because it's within the urban growth area. This is your area where you may expand. It's not within your city limits. If you see in here, the dotted line goes diagonally down from northwest down to the southeast across the image here. And so the city decides the land use designation, so the future land use for the property, but the county, because it's still in county jurisdiction, the county determines the zoning. So the first step for these property owners is to come to the city and propose to have the comprehensive plan changed for their properties. And so you'll see docket 2 is in green. That's the one we're talking about right now. Docket 5 is in this sort of turquoise lighter blue. And then docket 6 is in a darker blue over here, an area farther over to the east. And this is all south of 82. So it's in that part of your urban growth area. So the existing land use, and that crosshatched is just to show that that's the limits of the urban growth area. And so Jacobs Road is coming in here. 82 is just north of this. So the existing land use designation is manufacturing light industrial with residential to the south. Some of these properties have residences on them. And having this comprehensive plan land use designation of manufacturing light industrial, and then they also have, oh, we don't have a map of it, but they also have a zoning designation of industrial through the county. If they go in to get a permit, if they try to pull a permit to add on to their house or to build a house, if the land is vacant, then they can't do it because it's industrial. It's zoned and it has the land use designation of industrial. But this is in a residential area. There's a lot of residential to the west and to the south here. And so they are proposing to remedy that by changing from manufacturing light industrial to residential. So that's docket number 2. Docket 4, because docket 3, you'll notice I skipped numbers there. Docket 3 was not accepted by the city council. The application was not accepted as part of the docket. So that's why that one's not being presented, because it's out of the running for now. So proposed item number 4 is a text change. And a component of your comprehensive plan is to include population forecasting numbers, and so to look at your population now, but because it's a 20-year plan, you want to look at the forecast. How big are we going to be in 20 years? Are we going to lose population? Or are we going to gain population? And that's baked into every comprehensive plan. It's a way to plan. So this proposed change is to use the State Office of Financial Management latest numbers. So the census happened in 2020, right? So they have updated numbers and updated projections, and they have released those numbers. And so this proposal is to incorporate those new projections and population counts as of 2021, November 2021. So AHBL recommends updating the text in the comprehensive plan to reflect the population and housing numbers, because they also collect data on housing. So just to give you a little snippet, a little taste of the difference here, the 2016 population estimate that's included in your comprehensive plan, the 2017 comprehensive plan, the population estimate was around 3,300. And according to the 2020 population census, you've grown to a little over, or to 3,479. So a little bit of growth. So it could mean something in planning to be able to look at that and to say, oh, we're going to have a ton more people, or we're not going to have a ton more people, or we've had this many housing developments go up. It could be useful information. So proposed item number 5. So this one is near the Shelostovsky request. There are 3 other parcels with the same designation of industrial that have similar conditions. The parcels are located south of and adjacent to Jacobs Road, and they abut residentially designated land to the south. 2 of the parcels actually have existing residential development, and 1 is undeveloped. And since all of them are designated as industrial, the county has zoned the parcels as light industrial, like I was saying earlier, and the existing residential developments are legally non-conforming uses. And as such, they have certain limitations per the Benton County Code. So again, like I was saying, if they go to the county and they want to pull a permit to add on to, make an addition to their house, then they may not be able to do that because they're existing non-conforming and they're in the industrial area.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I worked on both ends of the plan. And what I'm wondering, as south of the freeway, when we were on the council, we talked a lot about industrial use. And I was a part of the gas station and trying to develop over there. And I'm wondering if changing the zoning is going to affect the development of developing onto Kiona as a city. That's kind of what I wonder, because it's kind of hard to see with the paper map where exactly we're talking about. But I know that it's south of the freeway. Is changing the developing to residential going to affect the commercial properties that we hoped to attain on the south of the freeway? I guess that's the question.
And that's a really good question. And are you talking about the Sun Market?
Yes.
Yeah,
Because
so
we
that's
talked about the car wash that was supposed to go behind it, and possible movie theaters, motels, a swimming pool, amenities that would make Benton City better. I don't know.
yeah, and those are good questions. Those are really good questions and a really good discussion to have. The area that we're talking about right now for these requests is over, I don't know if you can see my
Can
cursor.
you use your cursor? Oh,
Yeah, can you see it circling around? No. Okay.
no.
So if you find the interstate symbol for 82 and then go south of that, there's a little bit of turquoise there. And if I could, I don't think I can zoom in any farther.
I can see it. How far is that from the gas station?
So do you see where it says Field Road and Jacobs Road? The gas station is east of this, so across Field Road.
That's really hard to see, but I think I know what you're saying. It's just,
Yeah, so there's still a lot of industrial land over there. And I can make a note to provide you a better map that shows
having
you.
got high density in apartments would be excellent, but I'm just wanting to make sure that we're not stunting the growth of the improvement plan that we had hoped to have.
Yes, and when I bring this back to you, I'll provide a map that shows you more context, so you can see what kind of uses are adjacent to this one. I can tell you that there's a lot of residential on this side of Field Road, And most of
Okay.
the existing industrial development and the open land that would be available for what you're talking about for commercial uses and industrial uses, most of that is to the east of Field Road.
Okay.
Do you see the label for Field Road
I
there?
see Field Road. I
Yeah.
just was trying to get a better determination of the exact area we're talking about. I'm not opposed to this. I just don't want it to affect the 20-year growth plan of the industrial development that have amenities that will make our city much better.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I pulled up the GIS map and it looks like when you look at land use, the areas that you're talking about in those few points, they are completely surrounded by the red residential. So you've got the orange, manufacturing, light industrial, and then to Michelle's point, the biggest chunk of orange is all sitting across.
Right. I can't see what you're saying, but I know what you're saying.
Can I share my screen?
Oh, I see it now. Thank you.
Let's see how about this? We have one more docket item, so I'm going to take you through it really quickly, and then I'll close the PowerPoint and I can share the GIS. Sarah, does that work?
That'd be awesome. I
Thank
think
you.
it helped visually.
Yeah. Totally. I'm a visual person too.
Thank you.
Okay, so we talked about this one, going from, this one's right next to Shelstowski, and this is going from manufacturing, light industrial to residential. And again, there are houses on many of these lots, and I think that's important to remember.
Mhm.
So that's, this gives you a little bit of an idea of it, that you can see the interstate there in the top of the picture, the existing land use, the gray, the blue outline are the parcels that we're talking about. And the gray represents manufacturing, light industrial, and then the beige, tan, orange, whatever color it is on your screen, that's residential. So the proposal is to change it to residential.
Oh, I see.
Okay, and then there is this group of properties, and these have a similar situation. There are 6 full parcels and then 2 parcels that it would just be a little piece of them. And these are in the same situation, that there are houses, there are residences on these parcels, but they have the land use designation of manufacturing, light industrial. And because of that, the county has given them a zoning designation of industrial. So again, when these folks go in to add on to their house, they are told that they're an existing non-conforming use, and they are limited in what they can do. So here's a close-up of that. So on the left, the existing land use is the industrial, with some commercial to the north. And then the proposal is to change it to residential. And then this just goes through the next steps, which I went through earlier. It'll go through public notice and SEPA review eventually, not quite yet. You'll hold a public hearing, and then you'll recommend to city, 1 or more public hearings, and then you'll make a recommendation to city council, and then city council holds 1 or more public hearings, and then they adopt the changes. So with that, I'm gonna try to, let's see, stop sharing that. And let me make sure I have the GIS open before I.
Real quick, while that transition's occurring, I'll just chime in, and I apologize if Millyanne already stated this. I did get distracted here for a second, but one of the issues that occurs when someone has property that's developed with a home, but it's on industrial land, is that it's really hard to sell or buy property in that case, because banks don't want to mortgage properties that have a land use designation that's contrary to that residential use. So it really puts people in a bind. So that's just, it's not really a criteria, of course, for changing land use, but it's just something to keep in your mind that people are experiencing, just by the way. Thanks.
I think by seeing the maps, it really helps us understand that it'd be a good idea for these people to have new land use conditions.
So I think I'm sharing the GIS with you now. Am I? Okay, good. Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So where it says Kiona here, what we're talking about for these particular properties, I'm going to zoom in. Tell me if I lose you at any point. So what we are talking about is over here. I'm not going to click on it because it'll give you a bunch of information that we don't need right now. But East Jacobs Road. So we've got 82 coming through, and all the pink is the city limits. I've left that on so we can tell where your city limits end. But remember, you're in the UGA. So the properties that we're talking about are, I'm just going to click on it real quick. That one, and that one, this one, and this one. And then there's another group over here, farther south and east. And currently the land use for these, we're still sharing, everybody's still seeing? Good, thank you. Currently the land use for these is manufacturing light industrial, but then there's all this red residential here to the south. And then to the north, let me turn off the city limits so I can tell what color that is. That's also industrial, but it's really the railroad and the railroad right of way through there. So it's not going to be, if any, it's going to be very little developable land. And then there's a piece right here. And I believe there's a house on that one, but I'd have to confirm that. So that gives you a little bit of context. And I can zoom out to give you a little bit more.
That really helps a lot. Thank you.
Okay, good. Yeah,
Leanne.
I'll add a slide for the next time that shows you exactly that. So you'll have a little refresher. Okay.
Millyanne, the
Yes.
two orange on the far left, on that cul-de-sac, those two that have the house just above that road, East Jacob Road, they're not on the list, correct? Even though there's a house on them, they're not ones you guys are proposing making a change at, right where your cursor is. They're not on the list to get changed, correct?
That's correct.
Why?
Why? That's too bad.
I don't know the answer.
I imagine they've been notified.
Maybe they're just not aware of the zoning issue. It's not an impact to them currently.
Right, they might need to be talked to.
Well, and I don't know what the current use is there, if it's really a house or if it's something else. Nicole, do you remember? And it also might be a zoning thing. Like I don't know off the top of my head what the Benton County zoning is right there. It should match and be light industrial, but perhaps it's not for some reason.
Maybe you can make a note of that and find out, because
Yeah,
it'd be a shame if we left them out when it could benefit them.
Well, they could
Yeah.
always apply on their own in a future year, a future docket, but I think we did give it a fair, a quick look there. Let me just pull up the,
well, and I'll also
parcel.
mention while she's looking for that we've been working with Benton County. They actually made us aware of some of these parcels because they've had a lot of questions. They've had people come in and have questions.
So for that parcel, it looks like there is a manufactured home on the property. However, they have, and that's the picture you see is different than the one I see on the county website. They've got like a lot of storage, outdoor storage. So
So it could be like more of an industrial use. We just don't know.
I think that's what we picked up on. Yeah. I mean, there's like a bunch of maybe junk cars out there. I'm not sure because I haven't been out to the property, of course, but that's kind of what it looks like looking at the aerial map.
I think there is I think maybe the next parcel to the left of that one might be there's a new commercial building that was built, and then I think that parcel there does have a business on it.
Actually, they have the same ownership, but it's an LLC. So it looks more industrial than residential. Again, they could apply, but we just didn't see that kind of lended itself. We also saw that this was north of East Jacobs Road. It doesn't abut other residential properties like the ones to the south do, where they're backing up to residential. Instead, they're closer to the railroad. So we didn't think that the change needed to go to that extent to the north, but certainly that could be considered in a future year. we had to stop somewhere basically. So for better or worse, that's what we picked out and when we took it to city council for docketing.
So does anybody have any further questions on this?
Can I chime in? This is Philip Shilostowski.
Yeah, he's one of the applicants.
Yeah, I'm the one that's off East Jacobs Road applying for a rezone change or this docket land use change. So the property, you guys had a question about those two properties that are north of where I asking to get a change. So one of them has a mobile home. Someone does live there, but it's used as they're using it as a business. I think they're for storage. And the other one, they just completed a shop on there for business use. So that's why I've talked to them, but you guys can reach out as well. But I've talked to the owner and he doesn't plan on changing it to residential because it doesn't benefit him, because that's what his intentions were, to use the light industrial as light industrial.
Well, thank you so much for that information.
But so yeah, and for that property that I'm asking, yeah, because it was when we purchased it, we didn't understand. Well, we assumed, I guess, what happens when you assume. We assumed it was a residential because it had a mobile home, septic, well, everything. People lived there, and we never figured anything out. We went to the county asking for permitting to build, and they said you can't do that. And we were like blindsided, and so that's why we're at this point right now, trying to see if we can get it rezoned so that essentially we can build a residence up there. Yeah, and then the neighbors, they mentioned, I think one of Nicole mentioned about the sale. Yeah, the neighbor here, they listed their house for sale, but they couldn't get it under contract because the mortgage wouldn't lend on it because it's non-conforming use, because it's light industrial with the mobile home on there. But it's been a little bit frustrating trying to figure this all out and going back and forth. But hopefully we're getting things situated so that we can build up there. But that's our plan, our hope. But guys, thank you guys for your time that you guys are, looking over this and reviewing it. I really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for bringing it to our attention.
Any other questions?
Can we look at that same map at where the docketed item number 6 was? Just, I
Sure.
think that I see it too, if you don't mind.
So in the PowerPoint or on GIS?
On GIS, to make sure we have it right in the area. Is that okay?
Yes. Just give me just a second to share. So 6 is the area over here. Am I sharing the map?
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
So where it says East 2nd Street, so the railroad comes through along here, and then there's East 2nd Street, and the parcels are, let me go the other way. They're here and here. It's these. And we've included in the list of parcels, we included this one south of the UGA and this one, because they're just, maybe it's a sloppy mapping situation, but we just want to make sure it gets cleaned up. If these change, if these change, we just want to make sure that every piece of it gets changed.
Just like what we did with the skate park and a few other properties before.
That's right.
We got new commissioners. We zoned a lot of property differently.
Yeah, through last year's process. You're right.
That's a really good idea.
So, Commissioner Funk, does that answer your question?
Yeah, sorry. I know you showed it in the beginning and I was a little bit slow. I just
No,
wanted
no.
to make sure I had it right when I flipped back through my notes. Thank you.
You're good. Anybody else need to see anything else on the map? That other one, while we're here, and I can show you. is up here. So this was item number 1, I believe. It's this piece. So it's to the west of Horn Drive and a little bit north of Karen, to give you a little more context for that one. And all this blue is commercial. And the red is residential. Okay, so the next step would be to take this to public hearing. We can also bring you another workshop and go a little deeper in it. The public hearing, again, we'd go through public notice. We would let the public know that they can come and speak and make comment. Yeah, do you feel ready to move forward with it, or do you want a little more time with it?
Michelle, you're on mute. Sorry.
Sorry, my son was coming through here, so I muted him. I feel like I'm ready to move forward, but we need to hear from each of you. The other
Miss
commissioners.
Jeannie, I'm good to go. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, this is Levi. I think I'm ready to proceed.
This is Sarah. I agree. Thank you so much.
All right, then we're ready to move forward.
Okay, then we will prepare more of a staff report for you. And we'll bring it back as soon as we can get it together and bring it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Those maps really helped us understand where the people are and what they need.
So that's everything that we have for you tonight. I think that was everything on your agenda.
Yes, that is everything that was on the agenda.
Okay. I don't see anything else. So with all that being said, I guess we can stop the hearing.
There was no public hearing.
There was no public hearing.
No.
This is informal, so
Yeah, I would just need if you guys are done, just a
we can
motion.
adjourn the meeting.
Yeah. Whoever
This
wants.
is
This is-
Sarah. I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second it. Meeting is adjourned.
I sorry, I need to get the roll call for it.
Okay, can we have a roll call?
Levi,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Jeannie.
Yes.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. We'll see you guys next month, possibly.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.